Hey, what's up? I'm Rayjgreen, former executive turned nomad entrepreneur. I used to run national small and mid-sized business for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and lead turnarounds for private equity groups, all before I moved my family to a remote Mexican beach to start a consulting business online. And I recently had the opportunity to join my man Tim Pereira in person in Austin for an interview on his podcast, The Tim Pereira Show. Tim is the founder of Per Wellness, which is a community that is built for men to get healthy and thrive without sacrificing success, and his show is all about finding the intersection between overall wellness, mental health, and business. So I had a great time on the show. And in fact, we dove into some things that I don't talk about very often when it comes to mental health and habits and what drives me in the inner game, including some of the struggles when I was getting started, the inner game, and how habits and systems actually drive some of the outcomes, the things that you're working on internally, how those are affecting you externally. And overall, we had a ton of fun, including doing a cold plunge before we even started. So really fun interview, some topics that I haven't covered in depth quite a bit, and I hope you get some value out of it. If you do, or if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. I'll do my best to respond. Let's dive in. The longer I'm in business, the more I realize, my business is basically just a reflection of me.
Yeah.
There's rarely like an external circumstance that's going to necessarily change that. Very rarely you're going to find the perfect offer that works right away, turns you into a millionaire right away.
Right.
Almost all the time, there's an element of the inner game that you've got to work on and like build up some fortitude and build up some resilience and build up the patience and then see these things through. And in the long term, that's how you end up succeeding.
Yeah. Welcome to the Tim Pereira Show, where I interview creators, founders, entrepreneurs, and high performers about the intersection between mental health, well-being, and business and success. And today I'm interviewing Rayjgreen, founder of Repeatable Revenue, where he runs a community of, coaches, consultants, and we're here to just talk about, all the things that Ray does that, kind of make him tick and allow him to run a successful business out of Cabo in Mexico. Awesome, Ray. Thanks for coming on, man.
Happy to be here, man.
Yeah.
And in person. This is super exciting.
I know. We have to address the elephant in the room and at least talk about your first ever cold plunge experience.
All right. It was faster than I expected.
Yeah.
When I looked at you and you said it's time, I thought I was halfway there.
Yeah. Well, you locked in pretty quick. And just for context, it was probably about 37 degrees and we did 3 minutes. And what we were focused on was locking into your breathing. You didn't tell me it was 37 degrees at first.
Yeah. Though. You said, it's not a cheap one.
Yeah. Yeah. So. It's not going to feel like a sauna, but you'll have to work your way through it. It's going to be tough. So what was it like coming out of that?
I was surprised that it went that quickly.
Yep.
First of all,
you locked in. That's actually the thing is you did really lock. That's what I noticed with you. I looked in, I was like, okay, he's doing well with the breath.
I did. It was good coaching. Like I took your advice and as soon as I got in, focused on breathing and I got to like the 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And the pattern for me was like 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out is what seemed to work. I was like, I've done this. I've cycled this a few times. Like, I wonder where we're at.
Yeah.
But like I said, like when I thought we were halfway through, we were there. So,
yeah.
But I don't know. I haven't researched it. Like, I don't know the science behind it, but I know a lot of people that I respect and have followed for years, the Tim Ferrisses of the world and others like that swear by it. And I just haven't done it, so like, first time for everything.
I mean, I think I've put this in a post before, like the thing I love most about it is the mental benefits and not just from like a mental health standpoint, but it's such a strong and intense practice of presence. If you let it, if you allow it to be. Some people will get in and clench. And one of the things I told you, I was like, hey, if you can actually work to surrender into it, as opposed to being tense, which is your body's natural reaction. And the reason I like that so much is because that is exactly how we react to stressful situations in life anyway, whether it's with business.
Clinch up.
Yeah. Oh, shit, my flight's getting delayed. We're going to sit on the tarmac for another, hour. Somebody cut me off. This client I had canceled. It's this natural reaction to tense up. And the more we can just practice the skill of recognizing we're within a tough situation and relaxing anyway and using a very clear tool for that, like your breath, is like, man, when I was doing because I don't do it every day, maybe once every couple months now. But when I was doing it every day, it was like, if I can do that, I can pretty much handle any other stressor.
Well, it's funny, like you think about it and those scenarios in life, it's the same thing. Like you can clinch up, like it's not going to change the outcome most of the time.
Right.
Like it's just going to make it less desirable. It's just going to make the situation worse. But it's like, I think you do it because you feel like it puts you in control.
Yeah.
But ultimately the shit's still cold and I'm still sitting here, no matter like whether I tense up or kind of lean into it. So I took your advice and leaned into it.
Yeah.
What surprised me more, because we did the sauna before that. And when we were sitting there and we were talking in the sauna, I was like, damn. I started looking at my heart rate. It was like, just like steadily climbing. And I think it got up to like 169. I was like, Tim, is this normal? Like, is this okay?
Yeah.
It's cool.
Sneaky.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I love that, because that's something I will, helping Alex Kremer host these retreats for his company Alluviance and doing the cold plunge sessions. And, one of the things I like to tell the people is they're kind of half circled around the cold tanks before we get in, is just that, is recognizing that what we're about to do is uncomfortable. We know it's going to be cold. Let's acknowledge that. And let's no longer allow that to try and hide somewhere in our mind. But we go, it is going to be cold. It's called a cold plunge. I just went and bought 300 pounds of ice. You're jumping in. And so recognize the part of you that is resisting that about it, and see if you can actually change your relationship to it and be like, oh, it is cold. I'm getting in. It's going to feel cold. So what? Let's see what we can do about it.
Well, dude, it's a perfect metaphor for business too. If you just expect something to be hard, like what the cold plunge or my next outbound strategy or the next offer that I get or the community that I'm going to roll out. Like if I just go into it knowing, hey, this is going to be hard. Like this is not going to be an overnight success, and I'm going to play the long game. I'm just going to lean into it, and I'm just going to take the punches. I'm just going to take each new failure, if you want to call it that, as a lesson, and I'm going to stay the course, and I'm just going to iterate. I think if you have that expectation, you're going to stay in the game longer. You're going to be, and you'll outlast a bunch of people. But one of the challenges, I think, myself and with people that I've coached, is if you go into it thinking it's going to be easier, and then you meet the initial resistance, and you're like, well, shit, this isn't easy.
Yeah.
And you think, well, I have an idea. Maybe I could try this and something completely different. Yeah. Because that's going to be easier. And then you go do that, and that's hard too. Yeah. And you do that, and you develop this pattern of just constantly looking for the grass that's greener on the other side, as opposed to just saying, hey, you know what? This shit's going to be hard, and I'm going to make it work instead of looking for the thing that works. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And I think what's, and cold plunge is such a good representation of that, is because seeing that actually a lot of the challenge in it is how we view it. Is our mindset around it, and that resistance that we have towards it being, oh, I didn't get it right away. Okay, well, that just is what it is. You didn't get it on your first try.
Right.
Or you stumbled, or you launched a campaign that maybe was a little shit, but it's the resistance that we have that actually makes it, more and more difficult.
Yep.
And then it builds up, and then we go, oh, let me redirect. I hear a lot with the guys I work with that often where it's I know what to do, I don't do it, or, oh, I'm really good at trying something and it's kind of like a sprint and then I fall off. I'm really good at starting things and I'm not amazing at following through. And I think what you were just sharing exactly, points to that, and points to why is our inability to recognize that, oh shit, the thing that is most difficult about this situation is not actually the situation. It's how I'm viewing the situation. And I just go, whoop, I don't want any part of it. Let me get out of it.
Well, dude, you talk about it all the time. It's it's the inner game.
Yeah.
And so much of business, we look at the outside, we look at the it's the offer, it's the market, it's the niche, it's the pricing, it's and those things matter. But dude, it's the inner game. The people that have the staying power, the people that have the patience, the people that are able to accept the failures and learn from them. And it's personally, I just find the longer I'm in business, the more I realize, my business is basically just a reflection of me.
Yeah.
And if I'm impatient and acting hastily and constantly pivoting and constantly changing directions, and that's all from me.
Yeah.
And so there's rarely an external circumstance that's going to necessarily change that. Very rarely you're going to find the perfect offer that works right away, turns you into a millionaire right away.
Right.
Almost all the time, there's an element of the inner game that you've got to work on and build up some fortitude and build up some resilience and build up the patience, and then see these things through. And in long term, that's how you end up succeeding.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's bring a little bit, I want to bring into context what you do as well, and a little bit just of your journey from from a business perspective. So I know I touched on in the intro, if we decide that it made it and that we don't have to completely cut it out, touched on a little bit about what you do, but who are you helping and why are they coming to you? What specifically are you helping them with?
I'm helping typically people that have left corporate in some way, shape, or form, or have some degree of expertise that they've built up. So they were a badass in sales, or a badass sales executive, or an incredible marketing communicator, or something like some set of expertise that they've said, I want to go spin this into a business. I want to do this. And either they've already started doing that, and it's kind of like executive freelancing, like trading time for money and selling that, but want to productize and scale it up, or they're saying, okay, I'm about to go out on my own and I want to fast track that. And so in large part through the community, I'm basically helping 5 years ago me, right? Like it's pretty successful in one facet of life, and just wanting to take a less traditional path. Like I want to build a business. I know I've got value that I can help clients. I can help, my audience with, whoever that is, but I don't know how to market myself. I don't know how to build a brand. I don't know how to build a funnel. I don't know how to, you know what I mean? And so that's
where there's a million YouTube videos, free downloads, all this stuff you can get on it. And at some point you're like, it's exhausting. Like, I just don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like, I think the cool part about where we are, like I feel lucky in a lot of ways. There's so much information and education that is free, and I've got an expensive MBA. And so I went to traditional business school, and it in no way, shape, or form prepared me for launching my own business online. Like not even it prepared me to manage a business really well. It prepared me to take something that was established and, take a $10 million company to 20 or 30 or 40. Help me build a team when I had corporate resources. Help me, when I'm forecasting 5-10 years out and I've got big money to spend on executives. But then you go out on your own and you've been used to delegating. Like most of your good part of your career, you're used to having big budgets. You're used to having, an ops team to do shit. And then you go out on your own. You're like, I now have to push all these buttons and turn all these knobs. And I think the benefit is there's a ton of information online for free, and a ton of it is really good, right? It's the challenge is the time that I have to spend to find the quality information, right? Like who are the people I'm going to listen to? And then is that advice right for me right now? Right? Is it right for me? Like the type of business that I'm building? Because what if I'm just trying to build $1 million lifestyle business? Is the guy that scales $1 billion companies, is his advice applicable to me?
Yeah, right.
And then is it applicable to me right now? Right. So on the one hand, love that we've got a ton of information. On the other hand, that kind of creates a challenge in and of itself, because you've got 27 different inputs and 27 different versions of what you're supposed to do right now. So what do I do right now? Like, can somebody help me with that? So that's what we focus on.
I feel that I had, really leaving tech sales, getting and actually started with a clothing company, right? That was my kind of way in entrepreneurship. And I was trying to I did manufacture for one inventory run overseas in Sri Lanka. And so trying to figure that whole thing out. And so I was learning, I just had a background in sales and managing some sales teams for a bit. And so it was trying to figure everything out. How do I build a website? Do I do email marketing? Do I do social media? Do I do ads? Do I do everything in between? Then I started writing on LinkedIn. So I was like, okay, should I learn how to write better? Should I get into videos? Should I do stuff for other platforms? And so it was this whole process. So that was a lot. But then when I started to get a little more focused, okay, let's take maybe a course here, a course there, watching YouTube videos. And what I noticed I got, even though I was investing in courses, I got really fatigued with the amount of effort and dedication and time it went into like, okay, I'm going to watch this course and there's 50 videos and I got to dedicate so much time to this. And then I got to go execute it. And then I got to iterate and go. And after doing a few of those, I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to go on another course where there's, so much stuff. I was like, I want to work with somebody. I want somebody to look at what I'm doing and say, this is going great. This is kind of shitty. This is taking up too much of your time, right? Like full steam ahead here, and I think what's important is that I also get asked a lot, like, what do you look for when you look for a coach? And it's like, man, somebody who thinks the same way I do, has similar life values, but has really been in my shoes and is to kind of where I want to go, right? Because they can understand really, really what I want and know what it takes to get there. And so I just feel that with there's so much information. And there was a point where I'm like, and I know I could end up finding the answer at some point, but I got really drained with it. So that was a big reason why, why I reached out to you and why we started working together. So on that, like what I'm curious about is like when people come to you, what tend to be like the biggest the biggest things, like the problems that they see, or maybe better yet, like the problems that you see within their businesses?
That's a good question. There's usually a couple. One is I've managed to, like, the people I tend to work with have been high performers.
Yeah.
And so they're usually winning in some way already, right? They've got some clients, they are, because you can hustle your way to $100,000 a year. You can, I mean, you can just like get after it, just like hit LinkedIn really hard, just, sell your time, do whatever you have to do.
Yeah.
And I think if you have a history of high performance, you're just going to get that piece of it done. But a lot of times they're burning out on the way that they got there, and the way that they got there isn't the way that they need to get to the next level, right? So when you're getting started, like you and I both, like a lot on LinkedIn, a lot of organic, a lot of engagement, a lot of like just sweat equity to get some demand, to build up your audience. And that works. And then the dog catches the car, right? And then you start getting clients, and then you're like, well, shit, now I have to keep this plate spinning. Now I've got a new plate spinning. And if I want to get to the next level, there's other things that I've got to be doing on top of keeping the thing going and servicing what I sell. So then it just gets into like this, you're not sure which thing to work on right now. Like, okay, should I go into paid? Should I productize this offer? Should I, like, I'm not sure, but I know what I'm doing, and what was effective in getting me at least to this level isn't sustainable to get to the next level. Yeah. And so, productizing the service is usually something that we work on. Okay, how do you take a one-on-one environment and turn it into like a group environment? How do you take a fractional offer where you are doing all the work for a company just like you would as an executive in the role, and create some boundaries that allow you to take on 2 or 3 times the number of clients? How do you create something in front of your consulting stuff that may still require you to a certain degree, but can you productize like an audit or something on the front end that you can sell and systematize and deliver in a little bit more scalable way? So those are a lot of things that we're working on. But I think it's, the more that I do this, the more that I realize, and even in my own business, the more that I realize those are the external things. Those are the outside things that are happening. Yeah. But like, just like we were talking about, there's oftentimes like so many internal things. Like, I don't know what I don't know, right? Or I have a belief system that has taught me that hard work is the thing that is necessary to get to the other piece. For sure. So I'm going to choose the harder route because the feedback loop reinforces the fact that I must be doing the right thing because I'm choosing. Well, sometimes that's the case. Yeah. But sometimes that's also just a feedback loop that you might be pushing against the wrong wall. Yeah. And so on the outside, there's things like, how do we productize? How do we build a better funnel? How do we start creating systems so that your marketing's, working for you in your sleep? And then on the other side, it's like, okay, what are the things that are going on that we could, like, what are the belief systems, or what are the things that you have? And I know it's like personally, like a thing that I've been working on over the past 12 months is like, I'm impatient as fuck, like really impatient. So when I talk about thinking things are going to be easier and changing directions, like I'm projecting in some way, like things that I've worked on over the years, like I'm impatient. I want shit to work now. And in corporate, that served me really well. I had big teams, big budgets, and I could put pressure and I could get shit done really quickly. You get out on your own and you put that degree of pressure on yourself and you say, hey, I've got to spin this thing up. I've got to get, this number of leads. I've got to get to this revenue level at this, like this quickly. And you start putting all that pressure on yourself and you start feeling like things aren't working. And sometimes they are, but they just take time to materialize. Yeah. Like, so I think, in the community, there's the tactical and the strategic side of it, but then there's also like the element of like, hey, we've got to be better people if we want better businesses. Yeah. So I think that's a good, kind of a good segue almost is, of course, the main juice of this show is to talk about that intersection of the inner game, the mindset work, the well-being, the mental health, the mental fitness, kind of whatever term you want to use. I'm not so stuck on a particular term. But how that intersects with and impacts things like business and success, and recognizing that, your business and your success, or whether you're in an IC role or you manage a team or you have your own thing, it doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? Like it's not its own, it is its own entity, but at the same time, it doesn't exist by itself, meaning that you are everywhere you go. And I think, what I often see in the beginning is, people don't quite connect the dots and realize how important it is to work on themselves, whether that's personal growth, whether it's patience, whether it's just working on regulating a little bit of stress,
or emotions that maybe makes their productivity sporadic, removes them from connection with their partners or their kids, right? And understanding, man, the more that we can just cultivate just a overall better human, the more it's going to impact things like your business and your success, because how could it not? Mm-hmm. And one of the things, that I think stuck out with me when we started first working together was the idea to do, to write down all the things that give you energy and drain your energy, and focusing on first creating, like getting really clear on the type of life you want, and then backing into how a business fits into that so it can support it. And so it's not the other way around where you're just committing all of your time and energy to again, it could be your job, could be your business, whatever. And then you're left trying to fill in the cracks with, life and travel and, relationships and your health and sleep and, all the shit that actually matters. So I'm really curious to hear how you got to that point. And because when I see you live in Mexico now with your family, you run this successful business, you're helping successful businesses, it's very clearly life first, while also very much wanting to do well in business and have a successful business and create a great life for yourself. It's not an either or for you, right? So I'm curious, how did you get to this point? And what have been some of the things that felt like maybe gave you a nudge to get here?
So how I got here, I ran national small and mid-sized business for the Chamber of Commerce, which is not your mom and pop's chamber of commerce. It's a political organization, right? So I raised almost $200 million in political fundraising, part of imagine election cycles, high pressure, high stress, lobbying, DC, which I love, by the way. It's just ingrained in competitiveness, and did very well at that. Was there for over a decade, rose from sales rep to managing director of the national business unit, and was just out on this trajectory. Got my MBA.
Pre-tank top.
This was
right.
It was pre-tank top, but interestingly, when I inherited the sales team, I got promoted to run the inside sales team. And the first thing I did the first week was I abolished the dress code and I brought in free Red Bull. I paid somebody to throw out the vending machine because I was a sales rep, right?
Yeah.
And we had this shitbox vending machine. It pissed everybody off. You'd go in, it eat your money. And so, as a salesperson, you have enough things that piss you off in a day.
Yeah.
So the first week that I was there, I said, hey, because I had to earn some goodwill with the team. I was the youngest guy there and everything. I'm like, this fucking vending machine's going to go.
Yeah.
Right. And we're bringing in free Red Bull, free snacks. We're getting a ping pong table, fired half the team within 60 days.
Wow.
It was we just took off. It was a trajectory. So it was, and so I was, at the chamber, even though it's a suit and tie environment, I was in flip flops, at the chamber. And it turns out if you raise enough money, your office is allowed to do largely what you want.
That's the benefit of sales.
So from there, I got recruited by some private equity groups to run some turnarounds for them, and did it in a hoodie. The first thing I bought the board was hoodies for this. So this has been a theme, but I'm doing that, and I've got a 2 and a 3-year-old at the time. And dude, I had everything that I thought I was supposed to have. I wasn't raised with money. I wasn't raised with CEO title, equity in business, fucking awesome house, all the cars I want. It was I'm not even 40 yet. And I'm like, dude, this is it. And I fucking hated it, man. It was, but I didn't realize it yet. I thought I had to kind of achieve the goal in order to realize that the goal wasn't really the goal that I wanted.
Yeah.
So I was kind of burning out, and my wife said, we've got to unplug for a bit. And so a buddy of mine had moved, who was actually working for me, running a remote sales team, had moved to Baja and was already down there full time. And I said, you know what, let's do a vacation. I can kind of mix in some work if I have to, and went down to visit. And when we landed, it was supposed to be a 3-week vacation, and I changed. The pace, the beach, I don't know if it was the vacation, I don't know if it was the culture, I don't know what. I changed and I felt it. My wife felt it. She fell in love with Baja, and we turned 3 weeks into 4 weeks. And by the time we left that vacation, we'd already made a decision that we were going to move to Baja. So we went back to Dallas.
Yeah.
Put our shit in storage. We went back to Baja less than 30 days later.
Wow.
And moved our family there. So here's the interesting part. So I'm like, I fixed it. I fixed it. I moved to Cabo.
I just needed a beach.
Yeah. And it turns out, you said this before, you're still there.
Yeah.
So even though temporarily it felt like I had removed myself from the environment and that fixed it, once all of me came to that environment, I was trying to figure out online business. I was trying to figure out how to sell consulting services and all this other shit. But I started overworking. I started burning out. I'm living in this sleepy beach town in Baja that I don't get to go to. Like, I'm not seeing the beach. Yeah. My wife's having an awesome time. Like, like our daily drivers of side by side, our kids are like beach kids. It's everything. I'm providing everything that I wanted.
Yeah.
But internally, I was frustrated again. And I was frustrated again because all this stuff was new. I was impatient. I needed and wanted to replace my income. I had some runway, but I realized I'm still here, man. Like, I'm a lot of the same feelings, a lot of the same stuff. Here I am burning out, doing the thing that I escaped. I tried to do to escape the burnout. And I realized at that point, and this has been a huge lesson for me, whether it was never the CEO role. It was never corporate. It was why when people beat up 9 to 5s and they say, hey, go start your own side hustle. Hey, guess what? Like, you're still going to be there.
Yeah.
And there's a pretty good chance that a lot of the things that are making you feel the way that you feel are going to not just follow you into entrepreneurship, they're going to be amplified.
Yeah, big time.
Because you don't have, I didn't have the security of 401ks. I didn't have paycheck every 2 weeks. So I just took everything, all those, and you're amplifying them. So a year into it, I'm investing in courses and I'm, coaches and a bunch of stuff. And there was a program that I bought into that borrowed on Jeff Spencer's Champions Blueprint, who's, I think, been a coach to like presidents, Olympic athletes, things like that. And there's something to the Champions Blueprint where you just basically kind of work backwards. And I got introduced to that and I said, that's like an interesting exercise. So coincidence that I'm reading at the time, Ryan Holiday's book, Stillness is the Key. And there's a point in that book where he says, if you aren't taking the time to think deeply about your business or something, then who is? Something to that effect. And I thought, damn, like, I'm running 1,000,000 miles a minute. I'm just trying to find clients. I'm just hustling. I'm not moving a business plan forward. I'm not moving towards anything in particular. I'm just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And I decided, you know what? I'm going to go sit in my office, no Wi-Fi, no computer, no nothing. And I'm going to sit and just think. Like, I'm just going to like, what is it? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
What am I here to do? Like, why did I make this move? Like, what the fuck am I here for? Like, is it more money? Is it the beach? Is there a certain income threshold? Is there some dream that I have? Is there like some type of job? Like, the world is literally my oyster. And I'm thinking, I don't know what I want to sell. I don't know what I want. And so I'm sure you've done something like this, but if you've ever sat by yourself for like 9 hours without tech, it's weird. Like the first hour, I'm just like compulsively looking for shit to grab. Yeah. And then it starts like happening. And then like you really start thinking deeply. And I walked out of that, man. And I still reflect on it periodically. I have a journal entry that I wrote on the way out. And I said, I like writing. I love creating content. I always have. Like, as a kid, I liked writing. I want to create content, whether it's writing newsletters or whether it's writing books. I don't give a but I like that part of this job. Yeah. I want to choose who I want to work with. Like, I don't want to be in positions where I feel like I've got to sell shit to people that I don't want to work with. And I want location independence. And so I had a list of a handful of things. And I said, that's now the framework that I'm going to build a business around. And that has become like what we're talking about, like the exercise. Like, that's where, hey, audit what gives you energy, what drains. I've tried to replicate that as much as possible for people to say, listen, like, your business doesn't have to run you. Like, if you aren't proactively moving a business forward in a direction that you want it to be, then you're basically hostage to the business. And money can't be the only factor because there's a million ways to make money. Yeah. So and
there's no end game.
And there's no end game, right?
With that,
there's no finish line. Like, you just keep going.
And really, I mean, it takes a lot of people to realize this too, or a lot of people, a lot of time, but is like, money is not fulfilling. It's just not. And I can buy you things, but I think, one of the things that has stuck out to me in the last few years, a lesson that I've learned is everything we do is to feel a certain way. We have to understand that, right? Whether it is buying a new car, it's going to provide us some feeling. If it's hitting goals for our business, right? And we can justify the heck out of it. We can say, oh no, it's going to provide this and this. But ultimately, if we keep asking questions and keep getting to the root of it, it's trying to provide a feeling. And if you really get it, what all feelings point to, like at the top, like the pinnacle of them is love, and it's acceptance, and it's connectedness, and there's, maybe fulfillment up there. So I think that was such a big thing for me as I was, trying to grow this business or get it off the ground, and just thinking like, oh, I need to hit this marker, and pausing for a second, be like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? What am I trying to get out of this actually? If I can, I'll put money here. Let's just assume we need it. Your business needs to have money let's just assume that's, just like you need a product, right? You need a product, you need money. Let's just assume those. What do I really want out of it? How do I want to spend my days? How do I want to feel growing this business? And I liked what you shared about how when you move to Baja and it's all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I'm here. Wait, I'm still here? Oh fuck, like I gotta still deal with the shit that I was dealing with in Texas. And it's kind of my big epiphany moment in 2020 when I got let go of my sales job. I was really battling depression, and it was that, everything in life is neutral and only our mind creates meaning, good or bad. And it hit me then like a ton of bricks, because it was like, oh crap, it's me. Everywhere I go, every single place I go, every interaction with the barista, at the line at the DMV, when somebody cuts me off, me on a customer call, me with my friends, me on a date, whatever, I'm the one that's there. And those experiences are simply created based on how I'm viewing them in my perspective. And so for you to go to Baja, it's no surprise that you went back into the same way, because that's what you knew. That's actually how Ray viewed life. And I think that's what I love, love these conversations, because it's like, in order for things to change out here, they're not going to change by themselves. Something like we have to change, if we want shit to change. And I think that doesn't land with a lot of people. Right. And that's really, and it's challenging to actually go out and execute on it. There's really three main things that, when I start working with people that we focus on. And the first one, you mentioned it, you're kind of in this survival mode. And that's what I see a lot of people are, being run by their calendars or by work, or always the next thing, or being busy or urgent, or got to earn this or got to get here. And puts us in this state of chronic survival mode. And so the first thing we always look at and focus on is getting from survival to more of a thriving state. And to me, that is just what you said, like there's stillness there. There's presence, there's calm. I feel like those are kind of some of the first benchmarks we work to start cultivating. And the second one is only when we're there, just like you experienced in your 9-hour session, right? Is what is my North Star? What am I actually doing? Because it's so easy to just let the days go by, and next thing I've been working on the business for 6 months, but what am I doing every day? I work and I just worked 9 hours today, but what did I really get done? Is this really moving the needle? And so that's really the second one, which that's why I love that exercise of, what are your energy givers? What are your energy drainers? And what do you really, really want? And that's a ongoing process, right? It evolves. And the third one is more just about action and execution and accountability, because you can know it, but it's only really when you start to execute, and take action, do you go from knowing to embodying. And that's where you start to experience that shift in old Ray, moving to Baja, and just goes back into what's familiar, kind of returns home into what he just knows. Hey, this is how I live. I work hard, I grind, I stress out, I burn out, I try and provide. It's like, that's a familiar state. And so it takes a lift to shift into that. So what was the moment, or what maybe moments for you where you really started to notice a different way of, I see it as a different way of being, right? Just how you're viewing, just how you're going through life. What were some of those pivotal moments?
Dude, I think it was, I don't know that there was a specific moment, and I don't know that there is. I think, at least from my experience, most things tend to be as much as I want this euphoric, pivotal moment, oftentimes I just find it's actually more of this gradual process. But this was probably more accelerated than normal. And it was, I just got punched in the face, man. I just gone from I was making less money than I was in corporate. I had no reason to not necessarily be happy though. I mean, we could all make more, but I had okay money. My kids aren't going to starve, so it wasn't, that stress was fake. Yeah. Right? I could look at a savings account and go, hey, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, and I felt like, okay, I'm making less money, but I have all the things I'm supposed, this is the dream.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're living in this place. It's got like almost a 180 or whatever is more than 180 view of the wide open ocean. It's just like we can whale watch from our patio. We're like virgin beaches. Why in the fuck am I not happy?
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong? And I couldn't quite figure it out. And it was frustrating to me. It was frustrating to my wife. And probably more importantly, like at the time I've got a 2 and a 3-year-old or 3 and a 4-year-old, like as we're going on, like looking at me, and I'm feeling like this isn't the dad that I want to be. Like I grew up without a real dad. So I think it was just this culmination of things and getting the things that I thought were necessary, right? Like I wrote the prescription. The prescription is go to a remote sleep beach town where you know, life is slower. It's easier. It's cheaper.
Yeah.
It's like, and you know what? Still doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I think that part of the challenge was I had been rewarded up to that point. Like the feedback loop for the way that I did things, was positive, right? I kept getting promoted. I kept making more money. I kept, by most of the standards that I had at the time, I was winning.
Yeah.
Like the feedback loop was positive.
Yeah.
But internally it wasn't. And there was a disconnect. And so changing the environment, changing everything but me.
Yeah.
Right? Like you change.
That'll do it.
And you go, change countries I live in, change my career that I'm in, change, do. And there's still something.
Yeah.
So I think that realizing that and being like one of my big drivers is my kids. Like I'm fucking determined to be a good, I guess, by at least as good as I can be.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
And I didn't think that I was there either in time or quality of time.
Yeah.
Because my headspace, even if I was at the beach on Saturday, I wasn't really at the beach on Saturday.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, got to get a client, got to do this.
Right.
I'm overwhelmed. I sold too many clients now. Like, fuck, now what do I do? So it was just this, it was an aha, and probably in some sense, I think similar in the corporate life, like getting what you want and then realizing it doesn't happen. And I used to watch like a lot of podcasts, like things about stoicism, things like that. So what was interesting to me also was I logically and conceptually knew a lot of things that I never internalized. And I don't think I ever realized I hadn't internalized it until I kind of reached this state. You know, it was like, hey, I read the Daily Stoic for like 2 years. I follow Tim. I read all of Ryan's. But I do but that's very different. Like ingesting all of that stuff is very different than digesting it, like turning it into something useful.
Yeah.
I don't think I had truly internalized it and applied it. And I'm still a huge work in progress.
Yeah.
Right? I think realizing, wow, I've got a lot of work to do on applying this.
Yeah.
And it is now projecting itself into my business and elsewhere. So I think that was kind of like the combination of things.
I think that I had a conversation earlier today actually with somebody who shared similar. He's like, man, for a long time into personal development, reading all this stuff, I haven't really been applying it. Mm-hmm. And I think that is part of the survival mechanism that is the mind, right? Our mind, especially for those that are like voracious readers or learners or into that, you know, what our mind is really, really good at is in basically checking the box, be like, I understand this. I get this idea, you know, conceptually, yep, we got it. And categorizing things, you know, it's our way of, it's something that helps us survive. It's a way to just be like, not spend unnecessary energy trying to figure out if somebody is safe or not, or if this, you know, this ledge over here is safe, right? It has kind of just this automatic process of being like, we got it, store it. Okay, we're good. We can move on. Now let's look on to the next potential threat.
File it away.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yep.
And there's a difference between conceptually getting something. I see this all the time, or I notice this with myself all the time. I'll read something. And if you've ever you read something, got it. Oh my gosh, this is an amazing business concept. And then you go, dude, I got to tell you what I just read. And you try to explain it to somebody and it comes out like jumbled. And I've done that and I'll be like, well, I don't fucking know that at all. I have no idea what I'm talking about. And there's a difference between conceptually getting it and that, like you said, digesting, I think of integrating or embodying it. Mm-hmm. And I almost think of the information, visually things help me like this. So it's like from the neck up, you know, if I read something, it checks the boxes, but really, do I actually feel it in my whole body? Does it feel like, no, I fucking know this stuff? And that it can be really hard, especially when you're doing this work trying to figure out. It's just sneaky. It can be like, yeah, we got it. No, we're good. We no longer are obsessed with work. We're no longer going to burn out. We're good. Let's move on. And next thing you know, shit hasn't changed.
Yep.
So how are things now? Like, what I'm curious is, how have you made progress with that? And let's just assume you're not perfect. Mm-hmm. And so how have you made progress with it? And then where are still areas that, are like, I just think of it like a garden. Weeds are always popping up. We just have to constantly go in and pull them out. So for you, what's the progress? And then where do some things still show up?
Dude, so far from perfect. So it's like it's a work in progress every day. I'm kind of obsessive on some of these things though. So like maybe on the weird side.
I feel you.
Just welcome it. So one thing that I have found, one of the observations that I had was that part of the challenge for me was I never truly respected the progress that I'd made, right? Like I only respected the last achievement that I had, and I was immediately looking to the next achievement.
Yeah.
And again, the feedback loop on that wasn't terrible. I mean, from a career standpoint, other shit, but internally, it really meant that you do all of this work that you never give yourself credit for, right? Like you've done this. Like as soon as I said, I'm going to get my MBA. Okay. So I started my MBA, and then I determined about halfway through, I also want to get my CFA. And if you've ever studied for fucking CFA, like that's a beast in and of itself. Like I think
what is that? I don't know what that is.
It's for financial analysts.
Okay.
So it's like not financial planning. It's like you're going quantitative shit, like stock trading level. So I'm like, I'm going to do my MBA and my CFA. And then I decided along the way, I've got to, which I never finished my CFA, by the way, but I was a statistic because very few people do. But then you know what? I've got to get honors. Like I've got to end, and I've got to get beta, gamma, sigma. I've got to get so it was just this thing that kept ratcheting up. So realizing I don't give myself credit for the progress that I make. One of the things that I do every day right now is part of my journaling routine each morning is I reflect on the day before, and I've got to list at least 5 micro wins, right? Like what were 5 pieces of progress that you made yesterday on the business? Like take time to reflect on what you have accomplished.
Yeah.
Like
five's a lot too. That's good.
It is. But when you think about it, you're like, hey, you know what? I'd killer coaching call.
Yeah.
Like if
totally doable.
If you actually look, dude, they're there. We just blow past them.
Yeah.
Like we give somebody great piece of advice on a coaching call and they go, oh my God, this is awesome. This is immensely helpful. And we go, cool. We go to the next call and we've forgotten what we've done.
Yeah.
Well, I think for me personally, I've got to give myself some credit for that. But I've had to develop like a deliberate practice of looking on the day and saying, well, and sometimes I've got to look at my calendar and like, all right, what was it? But I found that to be like super helpful. And I think finding just small ways to to create habits that fix like one weed at a time.
Yeah.
And then the other piece is I've had to acknowledge that the process is not going to go as quickly as I want, like very rarely, right? I like to move at 100 miles an hour, and that is not the best way to appreciate the progress that you're making, to be grateful for the stuff that you have, to so I have had to like continuously just like be okay with slower progress than I would normally be okay with.
Yeah.
And by doing that, what's interesting is I've slowed down, but because of that, I have felt like I've been making more deliberate decisions.
Yeah.
Fewer decisions, fewer projects at the same time, because when everything has to move quickly, like you're just like fucking, you've got lines in the water everywhere.
Yeah.
You've got to like, I'll try that. And you end up like, are you really doing that the best that it could be doing?
Yeah.
Like, are you giving it a proper chance to actually work? Right. And if you're not, if you're just trying to like sporadically do a whole bunch of shit, none of it's being done really well, which means the likelihood of success is actually lower, which means oftentimes the perception of speed and getting there faster is actually slower.
Yeah.
And so being okay with a little bit slower progress, making fewer bets more deliberately, seeing them through more thoroughly, and making things work as opposed to like, got to find the thing that works, So I think for me, those are a couple things, but I'm big on fitness and it's like some journaling and, meditation and those kind of things.
Yeah.
For me too.
One of the things that I didn't even realize that I struggled with, but was, not only recognizing wins, but is feeling like if I couldn't use willpower to do something, then it didn't count. Meaning like I went through a period where, I was like binge eating a lot, I was just eating a lot of crap, and I would like buy ice cream and with no intention to eat the whole thing. But every time it was in the fridge, I would eat the whole thing, and so I would feel like shame. I would feel guilty about it. I would beat myself up and be like, you should be able to just have like 3 bites of it, and that cycle repeated for a long time until finally I said, you know what? Fuck this. I'm not going to buy it. I'm just not going to have it in the house, because when I do, I eat all of it. Mm-hmm. And what I found was I wouldn't eat it. I wouldn't have ice cream. I wouldn't overindulge. And it made something start to click, which is like what I wanted most was a certain outcome. What my mind wanted most was to basically say, unless we do it this way, it doesn't count. And so one of the things that I've really picked up from a lot of people that are high performers, that are running their own businesses, right, is like the intentionality they have with everything. And so where you recognized that your default wiring is not to celebrate 5 wins every day. And I think that's a product of the human mind, or a byproduct of it is wired for potential threats, survival, what's next. There's not a lot of time wired into it to sit and reflect and enjoy what we have. That wouldn't be very good for a time when we need to survive. And so recognizing like, actually what I want is like, what I don't want is to feel like I'm never doing anything well or enough, or I'm not achieving. And to recognize that and be like, okay, well, what do I need to do to feel that way? Instead of beating ourselves up for crushing ice cream or not reflecting on wins, we go, how about we shake up the system a little bit? How about we do something to encourage the behavior and ultimately the end result that we really just want, right? Whether it's laying your clothes out the night before, to go to the gym, or it is, like forcing yourself to write 5 wins every single day. And so what I see talking with people more and more is they are so intentional with their environment, whether that's physical environment or social or whatever, and they set it up in a way that supports who they want to be, the business they want, the actions that they want to take. So that way it's easy, right? And that way they're just like, hey, now it's kind of default. All I have to do is just show up and write the 5 things, and it shifts completely how I view my world, my life. And then ultimately it shifts how you're feeling, and how you're showing up. Going back to everything we're doing is for a feeling, doing things that really encourage that.
Yeah, dude, I think environment is everything, right? Like and that's inclusive of the people that you hang out with. It's inclusive of like, even, where you live and what you do and how you manage your calendar and how, like, who, the clients that you take on. The like environment is everything. What's interesting though is you said like the intentionality, and I think one of the challenges that I had before was probably that beyond achievement, beyond the next thing, I wasn't sure what I really wanted. I had my eyes locked on the next thing. Yeah. And I developed a habit of winning and getting the next thing. But I never really took time to say, what do you really want? Yeah. Man, it was like the default answer. It was, I want the next title and the next pay raise.
Yeah.
Right?
What do you mean? What do I want really
the next
want?
win. And when that happens and you get what you thought it was, and then you have this aha moment, you're like, well, fuck. Like this didn't bring the thing that I thought. And so you either try to go to the next thing, which is what I did for a long time, or at some point you start realizing like, hey, this is a cycle. Yeah. And I keep getting crossing a finish line, and it's just never actually bringing what I thought it was going to bring. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I'd ever really sat down and deliberately said, what do you want? Until probably that day, right? Like where I sat there alone, and now I try to cultivate that into coaching and into our community. Is like, hey, do you know why you're building this thing? Yeah. If you had asked me, why are you starting your own business? I'm not sure I could have literally told you, well, when you don't know that, how do you make good decisions? Right? You'd mentioned the North Star. If you don't have a North Star, then what is your decision-making filter? Yeah. Like you have 2, let's assume equally lucrative opportunities sitting in front of you. Yeah. How do you decide? Right. And rarely is it really that easy, because it always one seems a little bit more lucrative. So we go for that one. But it's super easy to end up in this reactive business, even more so as an entrepreneur than a corporate, because you don't have boundaries. Like you can do whatever you want. Right. And so you end up in this reactive state, chasing things instead of saying, you know what, let me pause for a second. What is it that I want from life first? Because the business is still a means to an end. Like the business itself, that in and of itself doesn't really bring anything to you. Like that is a means to an end. It's wealth. It's something, right?
Yeah.
So what do I want the business to deliver for me? Well, okay. So what do I want for my life? Then what needs to be true about the business to make that happen?
Yeah.
Now you've got a North Star. Now you can start making some decisions. Now you can start saying, hey, you know, I have this cool opportunity that came up, and let me kind of run it through my filter. Let me put it through the constraints. Is this going to move me closer to this?
Yeah.
And if it's not, then it's a non-starter. Like, you know, so, and that can be different for anyone. Like maybe for some people, money is a huge part of it. Like maybe for other people, money is like not as big of a part. But if you've never taken the time to like really sit down and be intentional and deliberate and make sure that the goals that you're chasing are actually your goals, I think it's really easy to end up building a prison for a business. And that's like the ultimate dissatisfaction.
Fast way to burnout.
You built it. Like how frustrating is that? You get to the thing, you're like, well, son of a bitch, I built this thing and it's not what I want. And there's so many agency owners, there's so many entrepreneurs that succeed in the same way that I did in corporate and get to that point and go, this isn't at all what I wanted. I'm burning out on schedule, burning out on time. I'm not seeing my kids. Or even if I have some of those things, the work that I'm doing isn't in any way fulfilling. I'm just, you know, so I think by design is a huge part of it, you know.